to our new series, the Kabbalistic Map of Personality. And over the next couple of weeks, please God, we're going to explore some authentic Kabbalistic ideas that are found in the original Kabbalistic writings as very, I guess, out there, esoteric ideas. But we're going to look at it through the prism of Hasidic thought that makes it very personal. Everything we're going to study is going to be about you and about me and about every single person in the universe. And hopefully, through the Kabbalistic wisdom, we're going to gain a deeper insight into ourselves, into the way we work, into who we really are. And we'll start with a quote from the Talmud, the great compendium of Jewish wisdom from 1500 or so years ago, that says that just as everyone's face is different, so too everyone's character is different. That every single face is completely unique. Even identical twins are not really identical. We all know identical twins, and we know which one's which, at least as we get to know them. There are no two faces that are alike. Every single face is unique. And so the Talmud says, just as every face is unique, so too every character is unique. Every person, every human being is a unique character. We're not just different externally, where our face looks different, but internally, our personality, our being, our inner self is different. Every single person has a unique makeup. And that's why life is so complicated, because we don't see things the same. We don't experience things the same as anybody else. And so therefore, every conversation you have, every interaction, every relationship you have is the coming together of two distinct beings. Just like you look different, so too you look at things differently. No two faces are alike. Now that makes relationships complicated. And that makes the ability to get on with people complicated, because I have my look and my outlook, and that being different to yours, I don't always realize. It's not always conscious to me that you look at it differently. So I can't understand how you can look at it differently to me, because it's so obvious. It's so apparent how things are supposed to be and how things look from my perspective. How can you not see it that way? But if I would contemplate the fact that just like your face is not the same as my face, so too the way you look at the world is not the same as the way I look at it. The way you experience the world is not the way I experience it. If we would contemplate that, so then we'd maybe have a bit more tolerance for others. Now, this statement of the Talmud can be read and understood on several levels. If you think into it a little bit, the idea that everyone's face is different, is that actually true? If you look at all these faces and any face, they're actually, in a way, all the same. Every face has pretty much the same ingredients as any other face. Eyes, nose, mouth, ears, hair, eyebrows, skin, cheeks, chin. They're more or less the same. The makeup of the face, not makeup, that which makes up the face, is the same in every person. And yet, with those exact same ingredients, there is variation, slight or sometimes even dramatic, to make people completely different. So looking at these different faces, they all have everything in common and yet nothing in common. The exact same parts of the face, and yet each one is different. Every nose is a different size and a different shape. They're all noses, but they're recognizable. That's that nose, and this is this nose. Eyes, there might be the same two eyes, but the colors, the positioning, the spacing of the eyes, it's different for each person. The distance between the nose and the mouth, how wide the mouth is, the angles of the mouth, the shades of the skin, the colors of the eyes and the hair, all of these things are the variables that make a person different. So taking the exact same features, there are infinite combinations of those features, infinite variations that make every person unique and different. And so if the Talmud says that just like everyone's face is different, so too everyone's character is different, we can make a parallel and say that just like the face is made up of the same features and yet the combination is different for each person, so too with your character. Every single person's character is made up of the same ingredients. Wherever you are in the world, whoever you are, however old you are, there are certain particular ingredients of your character, of your personality, of your inner self, your inner face, the you that is beyond the surface. It's exactly the same as me and every other person. The ingredients are the same. The features are the same of our inner self. What makes us unique is the particular combination, the emphasis, the size and shape of your inner self. A face is apparent. You see a face and you see the features as you look at a person. What you don't see straight away, but you get a sense of as you get to know a person, is there's something behind that person. There's the personality there. And we all have different personalities. What are the features of that personality? What are those ingredients? The face has the nose, the eyes, the mouth. What does the personality have? And what we're going to see from the Kabbalistic teachings is that all personalities have the exact same ingredients, but just like the face, so too the character. The complexities, the subtleties make it completely different and make each person totally and utterly unique, which on the one hand makes it very complex. If every person is unique, no two people are alike, so who am I supposed to get on with? Who am I supposed to understand? I struggle to understand myself. How can I understand you if you're different to me? So on the one hand, that's a challenge. On the other hand, if we know that we're all made up of the same stuff, we have in us the exact same ingredients, just in different combinations, different emphasis, different strengths and weaknesses. So that means that I do have a bit of you in me. I can relate to you because there is something within me that reflects what you are. Maybe we have different combinations, but we have a common base. What the Talmud here is saying is, look at another face. They're different to you. They have a different face, but you relate to a fellow human being. There's a familiarity of humanity there. And so within the differences, there is a commonality. So too with character. As we get to know our character, we'll see, we're all made up of the same stuff, just with different flavors of the same stuff. And therefore, we can find that common human connection and relate to each other. What we're going to see is the map of the personality from a Kabbalistic perspective. And this transcends any cultural, ethnic differences. It applies to all people in all places, in all times. It's not a particular time in history that this applies to. It's not to a particular type of human being. It's all human beings. It's both male and female. Everyone has the same ingredients of the soul. And this will be tested. We'll see if it works. We'll see if everyone can identify these various faculties within themselves and find out which one of those faculties you relate to the most. As we get to know the Kabbalistic map of our personality. Now, as we go, questions are very welcome, but I'll take them at the end. So you're welcome to either write into the chat a question, which I'll address at the end, or at the end, you can also unmute at the end of the class, and we can discuss what we discover in the next few moments. So let's launch into the map of the soul. These are the 7 keys of our personality. These 7 attributes are listed in Kabbalistic writings as being the makeup of our emotional state, of our character, of our inner world. I'm going to go through them all today, just briefly, but we're going to focus on the first two for this evening. But just briefly, in Hebrew, the 7 names of these keys of our personality are Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, and Malchut. I have offered translations here which are not necessarily literal, because literal translations miss the point. Each one of these is a different expression of personality. Chesed is the faculty of kindness, of love, of giving. Gevura is the faculty of discipline, awe, and receiving. And they're the two we're going to focus on this evening. As you can see, 2 opposing energies within the personality. Tiferet, briefly, means harmony, compassion, empathy. Netzach, assertiveness and determination. Hod, submissiveness and humility. Yisod is connection or charisma. And Malchut is confidence or expressiveness. We're going to meet each one of these 7 over the next few weeks. But for this evening, I want to focus first and foremost on Chesed and Gevura, these 2 particular attributes. And as we go along, we're going to see we have all of these attributes within us. All 7 of these faculties are within every single person. But you're going to find that some of them resonate with you more than others. You feel yourself being more this way than that way. And sometimes in different areas, you'll relate to one, and in other areas, you'll relate to another. But as you become more familiar with them, you'll probably find yourself, you'll be able to categorize yourself somewhat and find where you belong. The first 2, Chesed and Gevura, are the first 2 because they're the foundation of them all. And we're going to see how the structure here is very tight, very exact. And at the same time, there's room for infinite number of personalities. Now, before we get into Chesed and Gevura in depth, it's important to note that these 7 are not just 7. Each one of these 7 faculties is actually made up of all the 7 faculties. You can subdivide each one of the 7 into 7. The number 7 has a special significance in Kabbalistic thought. The world was created in 7 days. There's a 7-day week, which, by the way, the 7-day week is the only part of our calendar that has no astronomical reflection. The month is the cycle of the moon. The year is the cycle of the sun. The day is the orbit of the earth. A week of 7 days is not reflected in any planetary movement. It's a Kabbalistic concept. It's a Torah idea. It's a divine idea that 7 is the basis of creation. And each of the 7 days of creation correspond to these 7 faculties and express one of those 7 faculties, which is beyond the scope of today's discussion. The number 7 has significance in Jewish tradition. We wrap our tefillin around our arm between the elbow and the wrist 7 times. A bride walks around a groom 7 times at a chuppah. And the number 7 comes up in our calendar as the 7 days of the week, the 7th day being Shabbat. There's also a 7-year cycle with the Shemitah year, the sabbatical year every 7 years. And there's a cycle of 7 times 7 years, 49 years, which culminate in the 50th year, the Jubilee year in the land of Israel. Also, the time period we're currently in the calendar between Pesach and Shavuot is the 7 weeks from the Exodus from Egypt until the receiving of the Torah. 7 times 7, 7 weeks, 7 times 7 days. This all stems, all of these 7s come from the 7 creative energies in God, which are reflected in the 7 faculties of the human being. And these 7 energies, each one of them comprises of all other 7. So therefore, the 7 really becomes 49, 7 times 7. And so they're not just 7 personalities, they're really 7 times 7 personalities, 49 personalities. But even that can be subdivided by 7. And you multiply 49 by 7. And so on and so forth to get more and more exact into the personality, into your particular place. And it goes ad infinitum. It includes infinite different variables. Each one interacts with the other. So it's much more complex than just 7. However, to make it simple for us, we're going to make massive sweeping generalizations. And we're going to put people into very simplified categories. But as you'll see, it actually works. So let's start with chesed and gevura. Are you a chesed person or are you a gevura person? Well, let's examine what they are, and we'll see. Let's look at chesed and gevura personalities, and we're going to divide them very much here. Even though, like I said, everyone has chesed and everyone has gevura, we're going to make it into, there's a chesed person and a gevura person, like 2 corners, 2 extremes. Most of us are not at such extremes, but we're going to do it for the sake of our conversation to clarify the ideas, and then you'll see which one you tend towards. So first, let's just meet the 2 characters. Before you decide what you are, let's meet them. A chesed person in their disposition. What type of person are they in the way they live, in the way they interact, in the way they view the world? A chesed person is optimistic. They see the cup as half full. They think things are going to be good. They believe that the best is going to happen. They're much more just positive and upbeat. That is a chesed type of person. A gevura person will be the opposite, will be much more pessimistic, will view the world as being more difficult, see that the worst is going to happen, expecting the worst. Neither are better than another at the moment. We're not going to judge them for now and say who's better or who's worse. The gevura person might be right, or maybe the chesed person is right. It may be beneficial to be a chesed person and may be more difficult to be a gevura person in certain areas. We're not going to judge that for now. We're just meeting them. The chesed person thinks things are going to be good. The gevura person expects the worst. So when you get a message saying delivery in 3 to 10 weeks, so you've made an order and it's delivery within 3 to 10 weeks. The chesed person is expecting it to come 3 weeks or maybe even sooner. The gevura person saying at least 10 weeks, maybe longer. Who's right? Well, it depends where you're ordering from. But the chesed person will have that optimistic bias that things will be the best case scenario. The gevura person will be preparing for the worst case scenario. That's just their nature. And that's because chesed is a very positive energy. Gevura is more negative energy. Chesed is more expressive and outward, the power of love. Gevura is more inward, controlled, the power of discipline. And so therefore a chesed personality sees things as positive, optimistic, whereas a gevura personality is going to be more pessimistic. This also translates into the spontaneity of a chesed person. A chesed person is more outward, out there, and ready to just do something on the fly. Make it happen. Let it go. A gevura person is not spontaneous. They're very organized. They have a good schedule, discipline. They know what has to happen next, and they stick to it. They're not so loose with their schedule. They stick to it. The chesed person is very spontaneous. And therefore, the gevura person is more a contained person. They're more within themselves. Not necessarily introverted, could be expressed as introversion, but it's more a person who has control over their space and over their energy and doesn't share it so easily. Whereas a chesed person shares very easily, is very outward, and open and out there. So a chesed person will be the life of the party, but you don't want them organizing the party. The gevura person will be much better off organizing the party because they're disciplined. They're in control. Whereas the chesed person is so spontaneous, they may not get around to organizing it, but they're going to be much more fun at the party. That's the disposition of a chesed person as opposed to a gevura person. So when we translate this into relationships, and here I mean all types of relationships with other people, whether it be a romantic relationship, friendships, neighbors, parents and children, teachers and students, friends, and all types of relationships, the chesed person and the gevura person are very different in their relationships. The chesed person is a very loving person. The chesed is the power of love. And so they'll be generous, give a lot of gifts. They'll be very expressive in their love and in their passion. A gevura person, not necessarily. They won't be quite as expressive in their relationships, but they'll be a good listener. They'll pay a lot of attention. They will hear what you're saying. They'll listen carefully. The gevura person will also be reliable. The chesed person, not necessarily as reliable. They're a little bit more unpredictable, the chesed person. The gevura person is very predictable. So therefore, in their relationships, they're reliable. They show up. They're there. They stick to it. The chesed person is lenient, is easygoing, laissez-faire, whichever way the wind blows. A gevura person is not like that. They lay down the rules. So as a parent, the gevura person has strict guidelines, has strict boundaries and rules, and they're enforced. The chesed person has rules that are broken. They're not so into the rules. They let things fly. Again, who's right or wrong? Well, sometimes this, sometimes that. For now, we're not judging. We're just pointing out the extremes. An extreme chesed person is extremely loving and extremely unreliable. An extreme gevura person is very dependable, but holds back a lot. Therefore, they listen more. They can be quieter and hear. They don't always have to be talking. They could be listening. But the extreme gevura person is strict. A rule is a rule. A time is a time. A red line is a red line. Whereas the chesed person, there aren't really lines. It's all blurred. You can get away with a lot with a chesed parent. Now, if we look at the purpose of these different faculties, why do we have them? We have both. We all have chesed and gevura. Some of us are very chesed, some of us are very gevura. Some of us tend one way and some to the other. And some of us have a mixture of both. Very rarely will you have somebody who's extreme in both because they're too opposite. But you can have somebody who's moderate in both, has a bit of this, bit of that. But what is their purpose? Because we have both. What are they there for? Why are we created with chesed and gevura? The chesed power is there for us to share ourselves. Our ability to share ourselves, to be in a relationship, to connect to somebody, to go out towards them, to be loving towards somebody, caring, to give of myself to you. That's my chesed power. And to embrace you, to include you in my life, to bring you into my fold. That is my chesed power. My gevura power is there for me to protect myself, to hold back. Sometimes maybe you're not supposed to be involved in my life at the moment. There are some people that I have to stay away from. My Gvura tells me that. Chesed embraces everyone. Gvura rejects and says no. And that's necessary sometimes. Sometimes you have to step back. That's your Gvura power. Even in a relationship, even when connecting to somebody, you need Gvura to allow room for somebody else. That's my power to listen, to give space, to hold myself back and give you the center stage. So I've been given these powers, Chesed and Gvura, because each one has a purpose. Chesed is there for me to share myself and to embrace you and include you. Gvura is there for me to protect myself and to sometimes exclude you, or to allow you to take space, for me to push myself aside for you to take space. That's my Gvura. So just like the Chesed side, it's sharing myself with love or embracing you, including you. So to the Gvura side, it's not sharing myself, holding myself back, either to protect myself or to give you space to come in. So I need Chesed and I need Gvura. And both can be corrupted. Both powers can lead me astray. They can be misplaced. A misplaced Chesed is not good, as is a misplaced Gvura. So Chesed, while it's kindness and easygoingness, can also be spoiling. In the case of a parent who's extreme Chesed is very easygoing, but also spoils the kids. Whatever they want, they get. Whether it's healthy for them or not, whether it's good for them or not, there's no boundaries and no borders. There's no. They can't say no. And we all know an extreme Chesed parent spoils children. The word spoiling means spoiling. It's not. It's ruining them. It's not good for the child to always have yes. So an extreme Chesed parent, that's a misuse of Chesed if you always say yes to the child. On the other hand, an extreme Gvura parent is always saying no, is always being so strict, coming down so hard, too harsh. And we know how much that can destroy a child. So both sides, in their corrupted form, in their misplaced form, are not good. So too in a loving relationship, Chesed can be smothering. You can love them to death. You can say, I love you so much that there's no room for you. And people are sometimes baffled that I'm being so loving, so giving, so generous. Why is it not being received? Why is it not being appreciated? I've done so much for you. Yes, but that's Chesed gone too far sometimes. That's too much giving. Is it giving in the right place at the right time in the right way? Are you giving what I need, or you're just giving what you want to give? That could be smothering. That's misplaced Chesed. And what that leads to is the Chesed person getting burnt out. We all know people, and we've all experienced this in some way, who feel that they've done so much, it's not appreciated, so I won't give anymore. I'm burnt out from giving. I've tried everything and it's not appreciated, so then I won't bother. That's exhausted Chesed. And the Chesed person who is an extreme Chesed doesn't have the Gvura to listen and to hear what is needed. So their giving is misplaced and they get burnt out from that. Or it could express itself, misplaced Chesed, in loving the wrong person or the wrong things. An extreme chesed person doesn't differentiate. So the love can be totally misdirected. When you love just anybody, that may feel beautiful, but if it's not going to a deserving recipient, so then that love is not going to bring happiness, fulfillment, joy, because it's not reciprocated. A chesed person doesn't discern so much, so they can easily fall in love with the wrong person. And the love is beautiful because the chesed is beautiful, but it's not a team. It's not being received. It's gone in the wrong direction. A Gevura person would never make that mistake, because Gevura people are not so generous with their love. They're extremely discerning. It has to be right. It has to be deserved. It has to be the right person. But of course, that Gevura can also go to an extreme and become corrupted. Extreme Gevura can lead to too much rigidity, inflexibility. An extreme Gevura person, it has to be this way and it can't be any other way. And anytime their schedule is interrupted, they lose themselves. Everything falls apart. A bit of leeway, a bit of flexibility. No. A Gevura person, this is how it's got to be. And if it doesn't work out that way, it's the end of the world. And they can be quite harsh. I was a couple of minutes late. It's the end of the world. Things didn't happen exactly to plan, so you're canceled. That is Gevura when it's corrupted to be too hard, too rigid, too harsh, or too overprotective, holding oneself back too much, being too scared to take a risk, to let yourself go, to put yourself out there. If you're too overprotective of yourself, that's too much Gevura. Then you can never find love. You can never find connection. Nobody is deserving. No one's good enough. If there's too harsh a judgment, which is too extreme a Gevura, so then no one is worthy. And it's a very lonely existence. So we have to be very careful with our chesed and with our Gevura. You are either a chesed person or a Gevura person. You might be a bit of both, but you probably tend one way or the other. You probably find that going through this list, there's one side that you identify with a little bit more than the other. And some of you would be extreme on one side than the other. There may be an exception, but you might find that you're very much towards this way or that. And that's fine. That's you. That's your face. But you have to realize there's risks in either extreme. And if you too much bent towards one side and too much neglectful of the other, there are serious pitfalls. The chesed person, their love is misdirected. The Gevura person, they're too inward, too harsh, too judgmental, if they're in the extreme. But when they're balanced, when you have chesed, a willingness to take a risk, to let yourself out there, to reach out to another, to embrace another, but you have the Gevura to know to be cautious, careful, thoughtful. When you have the generosity to embrace, but you also have the discernment and the self-control to give room for others, then we have a good balance going. And that's the challenge of finding your place in the chesed and Gevura seesaw. Now, in case you're still not sure where you fit in, let's look at some questions to see if you're more chesed or more gvura. Because you probably are one way or the other. The very few people are really balanced down the middle. So I'll ask some questions and answer them to yourself, or if you're with somebody, you can answer them together, or just in your mind. But the answer you should give to these questions is the impulsive answer that comes to you. Don't think it over too much. There's no right or wrong to these questions. Just your sense should push you one way or the other, and it might help you see which way you are. So the first one is this, a theoretical situation. You have a dentist appointment at 10 a.m. It's a 10-minute drive, and you need 5 minutes to park and get to the clinic. What time do you leave home? Now, there's a couple of ways to look at this. It looks like a simple question, but we all know from experience, it's not so simple. Different people will answer this question very differently. A 10 a.m. appointment, to some people, as soon as you hear 10 a.m., that means, well, I've got to be there at least 10 minutes before that. And so that, with that assumption already, if it's a 10-minute drive and 5 minutes to park, that's 25 minutes before the event that I have to leave. And therefore, I should leave probably half an hour or maybe 45 minutes before in order to make sure that I'm there for the 10 a.m. appointment. That would be a very logical train of thought for some. Others, here at 10 a.m., 10-minute drive, 5 minutes parking almost doesn't register. And so a 10 a.m. appointment, okay, so you got to leave just before 10 or at 10. And that's fine. Like, there's a different view of time. If you're a real gevura person, scheduled, so then you're leaving half an hour in advance, at least, maybe more. If you're a real chesed person, you can do the maths here. You understand that 10-minute drive, 5-minute parking to be at the 10 a.m. You might have said 10, okay, quarter to 10, I got to leave at quarter to 10. You might have said that, but would you? Would you actually leave at quarter to 10? Or at quarter to 10, would you remember that you have to leave and then start doing things to get yourself to go? If you're honest about the answer here, if you were leaving 45 minutes early or something like that, that's tending towards gevura. You have schedule. If you're like realistically, definitely not leaving before quarter to 10 and probably a bit after, you might be tending towards chesed there. Let's add a layer to this situation. Just as you get in the car, whatever time it was, your phone rings. It's your sometimes a little too needy neighbor. Do you answer the call? Yes or no? You've got into the car at the time that you figured you need to get to the dentist on time. And just then the phone rings as you get into the car, and it's the neighbor who you know is going to ask you for something, is going to take up your time. Do you answer the call? Yes or no? A chesed person would not hesitate to answer. A gevura person would. Is this the right time to answer this call? When I need to get somewhere and I know that this call is going to be asking of me something that I probably can't do right now. So the knee-jerk reaction of a chesed person is, of course, to answer without real thought of where you need to go. A chesed person can easily be sidetracked, and the fact that they need to be somewhere will be placed second, and they'll take the call. Whereas a real gevura person says, not now. Now's not the time. Well, then, let's say either you took the call or you got a message the neighbor asks for a ride to the doctor in the same complex as your dentist, but waiting for her means you'll be late to your appointment. She can easily take the bus. She just asked for a ride. Do you take her? Yes or no? Now here again, that might seem like an easy calculation. Your neighbor needs a lift. Yes, they can take the bus, but what does it hurt you to take them in the car? A chesed person will not hesitate. It's so obvious. You just got to take them. Yeah, for sure. Come, I'll take you. You're going to be late? A few minutes late. It'll be all right. It's not the end of the world. For a chesed person, it's not the end of the world. And that seems obvious. And a chesed person would say, how cruel, how callous would it be to not take the person, send them on the bus? I can take them. But hang on a minute. There's another way of looking at this. If you're late to the dentist, that's not being considerate either. The dentist is waiting. There's an appointment. If you're late, the next appointment's going to be late. That's not respectful to just be late. It's not like this person is stranded on the street, has no way of going. They can take the bus. There is another option for them. They're not stuck in the pouring rain with nowhere to go. They have options. But to be nice to them is being inconsiderate to somebody else. To a Gevura person, that's obvious. That when you've got a schedule, you got to keep it. When you've got an appointment, you got to keep it. And so the way your knee-jerk response to that question may indicate which way you are, where you're falling, on the Gevura side or the Chesed side. Let's look at a completely different scenario. You're caring for an 8-year-old, whether it's yours or a relative or whatever situation it is, you're caring for an 8-year-old. He's crying that his maths homework is too hard for him, and he wants to go out and play before it gets dark. But he has to finish his homework. Do you, A, do the work for him, which will take 3 minutes, and then he can go out and play? Or B, show him how to do it himself, which could take an hour. There are two parts here. Do it for him. The kid just needs the help. He can't do the work. Do it for him and he's gone. Chesed would do that in the extreme. Chesed is just do it for them. And an extreme chesed parent or carer tends to do things for the child. Gevura, on the other hand, says, no, they've got to do it themselves. I've got to create the space for them to do it. I've got to allow them to develop. If I do it for him, he learns nothing except bad habits. I need to let him work it out. Even if it means that maybe it's going to get dark and he won't get up to play. So where do you fall on that? You do it for him, or you bring it out of him. That's chesed versus gevura. Here, you've got to think quickly as well. Pick the quotes that resonate with you. Would you say things are only going to get worse, so be prepared for the worst? Or would you say, relax, things can only get better from here? Which of those sayings resonate with you that, that's right. One of these you should relate with too, and the other one, not as much. Things are only going to get worse, or things can only get better from here. Would you more likely say, it stopped raining, let's make a run for it? Or take an umbrella just in case? Do you see that it stopped raining now, so you just go out? Or you take umbrella along just in case it starts raining again? Don't trust him. You don't know him well. Or give him the benefit of the doubt. You don't know him, he's probably a nice guy. What are you more likely to say? Would you say, I can't live with this mess? Or would you say, it's not a mess, I know where everything is? Which one are you? Each one of these is a chesed or a gevura person. See, remember, the chesed person is optimistic, has a bias towards optimism, that things are going to be good. So it can only get better from here. That's a chesed attitude. Whereas Gevura is more pessimistic. Things are going to get worse. Be prepared for the worst. So when it's stopped raining, the chesed person thinks it's not going to rain again, and I'll go out without the umbrella. Even though it's happened so many times that they went out without an umbrella and got wet because it started raining again. But the chesed person is not looking at it that way. It stopped raining, so it's going to be good. Let's take a dash, a run, a risk. The Gevura person takes no risks. It was raining this morning. It stopped now, but it could rain again. I'm taking an umbrella. The Gevura person will always have their umbrella with them. And therefore, the Gevura person also won't be so trusting of someone they don't know so well. Whereas a chesed person will give the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure it'll be fine. And the same applies to a mess. Gevura needs everything in its place. I can't live in a mess. I need things organized. Whereas chesed doesn't see it as a mess. There's no mess here. If I know where everything is, it's functioning. It's fine. It doesn't need to be so organized. And they don't even see the mess. They don't see it as a mess in the first place. Now, with all of these things, you may be a chesed person, or you may be a Gevura person, but even that, it may be only in relation to the person who you're sitting next to. Meaning, if you come from a very Gevura family, within that Gevura family, maybe you're the most chesed of the Gevura family. But compared to a chesed family, you're a Gevura person. So you see yourself as quite chesed compared to the rest of your family. But when you meet a real chesed person from a chesed family, you're still pretty Gevura. So you're chesed relative to Gevura, but relative to a chesed relative, you're not so chesed. You're pretty Gevura. This is also possible culturally as well. Each culture has a certain flavor to it. Certain cultures are much more organized and strict. And you could be a chesed person from a Gevura culture. Or the other way around. Some cultures are very laissez-faire and easygoing. You might be a Gevura type from a chesed culture. So within that context, you're very chesed. In that other context, you'd be considered Gevura. It's much more subtle than just the simplicity of chesed or Gevura. But the dynamic is still always there. So I hope that by now you see where you fit and you have a sense of which one you are. So what do you do with that information? If, okay, I'm a chesed person, I'm a Gevura person. So what? Therefore what? Well, you have to be asking the question, am I utilizing chesed for its purpose? Am I utilizing Gevura for its purpose? I need both. I may be strong in one, but I need both. Am I using chesed to share of myself and embrace others? That's its mission. Am I using Gevura to protect myself, to take sensible measures, and also to give room for others? If I'm an extreme chesed, do I need to actually work on the Gevura to try and appreciate that a bit, to try and develop the power of Gevura a little bit more? Am I smothering in my relationships? Is my generosity misplaced? Do I need to hold back and listen a bit more and allow space for somebody else? If I'm extreme Gevura, am I missing out on connecting with people because I'm being too harsh? Am I too rigid and not allowing myself to take a risk? Am I tending too extreme to the Gevura? Do I need to employ a bit of chesed? Learn, develop a bit of chesed. It's fascinating that so often we are attracted to the opposite. If you are an extreme chesed person, you very likely will end up with quite a Gevura person. Certainly in the very areas where you're very gvura, they're very chesed, and vice versa. And that is the gift that God gives us, that he sends into our lives the people who will press our buttons and who will force us to experience the other. And so when we contemplate that a little bit, we can come to be much more accepting of the otherness of another, not just accepting, but actually embracing of it. It's exactly what I need. I need that otherness. I need to learn. I need to expand my horizons. And so you're not crazy. You're just different. And that difference is what I need. I need to learn that. I need to engender some of that difference. I need to make it a part of me as well. So going back to the different faces, the Talmud says that just as everyone's face is different, so too everyone's character is different. The great Hasidic master, Rabbi Mendel of Kotsk, said, would you get angry at someone for having a different face than yours? Of course not. You wouldn't get angry at someone like, how could you have a nose that shape? How could your eyes be that color? You don't get angry at someone for having a different face. So don't get angry at someone for having a different personality than yours. On the contrary, the difference is what makes us interesting, is what expands our horizons. Because we don't all look the same, so we're unique. And because we don't all experience life the same, and we don't all share ourselves in the same way, and we don't all express ourselves the same way, because we have different personalities, that's what makes a relationship possible. So don't get angry at somebody for having a different personality, just like you couldn't get angry at them for having a different face. On the contrary, embrace that. Be excited about that. If you're the chesed person, you need some gevura. So observe it in somebody and learn it from them. Embrace it and respect it and make it a part of yours. If you're an extreme gevura person, you need a sprinkling of chesed. So watch the chesed person and mimic them. Yes, you'll always have your nature. Just like your face will always be your face. You'll always have your nature, but you've got all the other ingredients as well. Maybe you're dominant and strong in chesed, but you've also got gevura, or the other way around. It just needs to be developed, tapped into. It may not be natural, but it's necessary. And when we learn to appreciate that otherness in the other, when we learn to observe the advantages of the opposite side, then we become a much more wholesome person. Then we unite with other people. Then we have a sense of connection and oneness. If you have to be in my image, my face, so then I'm not allowing you to be you. But if I respect you for who you are, then I am richer for it, and so are you. Okay. I'm now going to open up to any questions you might have. You're welcome to either put them into the chat, or you can put your hand up, or you can unmute. I'm having a look now in some of the questions. When is one's inclination defined? Should it be instilled into a child? So our nature is very much inborn. It's very much a part of our genetic makeup. And from a very young age, you can observe in children their nature. Of course, we do develop and we do change, and different times of our life, we do go through different stages. But a lot of it is very much there from the beginning. And I guess a part of educating children is appreciating the various different ways and what's needed. Every child needs discipline and they need love. They need chesed and they need gvura. They need to be surrounded by both energies. And so by experiencing both and by seeing both in their parents and mentors and teachers, a child will come to appreciate the necessity for all, but they'll still naturally incline one way or the other. And that's fine. It's only when things go to extremes that they become more dangerous. That's when there needs to be more, I guess, intervention to develop somebody in the right direction. But our nature, to a great extent, is what it is. It's just that we're not stuck in our nature. I can act opposite to my nature. And I think teaching children and developing that skill of saying, I can go against my nature. Maybe I'm a chesed person. I need to sometimes fake gvura, but I need it. And the other way around as well.
Can I ask a question, Rabbi?
Sure.
So let's say you have a relationship where you have one that's more lenient to chesed and one that's more lenient to gevura, okay? And then at one point in the relationship, either the gevura or the chesed appreciates the other qualities and starts to become more. So you got, say, 2 gevura, right? Does that break some sort of happy balance? And can that be a cause of strife?
I would think it's hard to imagine somebody going like flipping from a chesed person to a gevura person, like to an extreme. It would more likely be that a person who tended towards chesed developed their gevura side, let's say, and that, on the contrary, that would be a very positive step in the relationship, because the gevura side of the relationship will then feel more connected. But the chesed won't go away. I think what would be worrying is if a person completely abandoned their nature and became something else. That will be a concern in a relationship, because then you're losing yourself, and that could endanger the relationship, because I got into this relationship because I'm attracted to the contrast that you are. And if you suddenly lose that and become sort of melted into my way of thinking, so then that contrast is gone. But I would say that would only be a bit of an artificial thing. I don't think a person can really mutate in a relationship to actually switch sides. That would not happen. So we need to always give the space for the other to express who they are, and allow that, even when that rubs us the wrong way, what is completely different to what I think is right. And of course, all this is within reason. I'm talking about healthy people expressing themselves in healthy ways, but totally different. That has to be. And if a person feels that they're not allowed to express who they are, then that will implode in time. That can't last.
Sure.
Yamaka.
If a person realizes that they're very corrupt in a certain category, what's the best way to get out of that corruption? Would it be, let's say someone's very corrupt in a chesed category, would it be to surround themselves with a gevura person? How do they get out of that?
So that's a great question too. With all areas like this, you need mentorship. You need direction. Sometimes we can't help ourselves. We are too far in a certain direction that we need outside help. Sometimes we're being too harsh on ourselves, and somebody on the outside can say, actually, it's not so bad. So I think in all cases like that, you do need direction. It's not enough just to be surrounded, I think, by gevura people. That would help. It would help, but that could also backfire, because if you don't know how to handle that, if you're so extreme chesed, you don't know how to handle that gevura thing, that could lead to a lot of clashes. So whenever there's opposing powers, you need a higher power that unites them. And so I think that a supervised program of introducing gevura would be necessary, as opposed to just self-diagnosis.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a question here. Can two people of the same nature be successful team, parents, partners? So that's a great question. Do you have to marry a chesed person if you're a gvura person? And does it have to be that way? What if two chesed people meet? Are they not compatible? You would think that they are, because chesed and chesed, isn't that great? Should we avoid people who we have things in common with, we see eye to eye to? Should I only look for somebody who I disagree with on everything and is totally opposite to me? That seems crazy. On the other hand, everything we've been saying seems to say that yes, a chesed person needs to be balanced by the gvura person, and the other way around. So can they be successful? So I think it's important to note that already male and female has enough opposing energy to it that even a chesed type of male and a chesed type of female, or a gvura male and a gvura female, are opposite enough to complement each other. Because within the realm of chesed and gvura, male and female also actually fit into that. There is, I don't know, what do you think? Do you think male is chesed or gvura? Do you think female is chesed or gvura? In Kabbalistic writings, it's very clear. Male is chesed, female is gvura. That doesn't mean all men are chesed and all women are gvura. You can have a gvura man and a chesed woman, but within the realms of male and female, the male energy is outward and the feminine energy is inward. The male energy expresses, the female energy receives. And so even if you have a chesed guy and a chesed girl, but he's a chesed of chesed, she's a chesed of gvura, so that could match very well. So I think that absolutely can work, and of course we're attracted to somebody who is our opposite, but we also at the same time feel an affinity to that person. Obviously, we're not attracted to somebody who just annoys us. Like that's not what we're attracted to. We're attracted to the opposing energy of a person, but also the commonality, the affinity we have with that person. And so so if we find that we have a lot in common, that's great. That's a good thing. But when you go deeper, you'll see that there are so many things that you see differently, and that will be the energy that will fuel the relationship. Another question: if you see your children are very much one personality, can you try to change them to be more balanced? So changing anyone, even yourself, is very difficult. So we should be careful to go out to try and change somebody else, even our children, is going to be extremely difficult. What we can do is we can model what balance means, because our kids know us as well. They know if you're the chesed one or the gvura one. Especially when there's two parents, they know which one to go to ask for what they want. They also know which one is going to answer the call and pick them up on time. They know who's the chesed and who's the gvura very, very innately. They know that. But if we model that, yes, I may tend this way, but I also learn to go this way. I also expand myself to go the other way as well. If they see that and we model it, so then that will be helpful. And yes, we do have to try and direct them. You know, a child, I mean, obviously, like, gvura is discipline, right? And we wouldn't expect a child to be disciplined. There are some kids who are self-disciplined, but that usually comes out a bit later, not at a very early stage. And so they do need that structure. But you also have to make sure that you're encouraging the natural tendencies of the child in a positive way. You're not just a chesed child trying to superimpose gvura, but you're also encouraging their chesed, their loving, expressive side. And so sometimes we do sometimes overcompensate as parents and try and push the kid to the other side and forget to also praise and recognize the beauty of their nature, and that's good as well. So I guess the answer is we're not trying to change their nature. We're trying to direct them to be the best that they can be. Okay, in the case of the dentist, if we know the doctor is normally late, but not always late, should this influence our answer? So I guess that is always a calculation that that many doctors do run late, but maybe that's because of people who are saying they're going to run late, and so they give everyone a lift. So of course, every situation has to be judged, and I guess what we are saying is this balance idea that sometimes you have to be late to something. Sometimes there's a good reason to be late to something. An extreme Gevura person does have to learn that people will be late sometimes for good reason, and sometimes there are acceptable reasons for that, and sometimes that's the right thing. Schedule can't be the be-all and end-all. But the chesed person has to realize that being all over the place with your schedule and being inconsiderate about other people's time is actually not nice, and not a way to function. So in all of these things, we have to balance it, and we have to be reasonable, and try to I guess transcend what we're stuck in, our nature that we're stuck in, which a little bit will connect with next week's class, God willing, when we meet the next attribute. Because what we're going to see is that Chesed and Gevura are the pillars, are the basis. But as we go through the rest of the 7 faculties, we'll see that one flows from the other, and it becomes a beautiful structure where each one of them, we have all of them, and each one of them can do with a bit of work. So please God, we'll continue that next week. Thanks God. Please God, we'll be here at the same time, same place. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great night, and all the best, everyone.
Thank you, Rabbi Moss.
Thanks, Rabbi Moss.